in session. Bobby, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Weeks?
Here.
Ms. Wade? Here. Ms. Dabbs? Here. Mr. Kramer? Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mrs. Norfleet?
Here.
Mr. Demasis?
Here.
Mrs. Tellier? Here. And one of the cases absent. That completes your roll call, sir.
Thank you. I'll have the board attorney give us the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, if you can.
Heavenly Father, we seek blessings on the task before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight and deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. We pray that our work this afternoon will find favor in your sight. This we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is the intention of this board to promote, protect, and improve health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Tarpon Springs by providing an equitable, effective, and inexpensive method of enforcing various codes within the city of Tarpon Springs. Any aggregated party may appeal a final administrative order of the board to the circuit court. Such an appeal shall be filed within 30 days of the execution of the order. Florida Statute 286.0105 requires any party appealing a decision of this board to have a record of the proceedings to support their appeal. The procedure of the board is as follows. First, the city presents its witnesses and exhibits, after which the alleged violator is able to ask the city witnesses any questions regarding the testimony. Secondly, the alleged violator is allowed to make a presentation and present his or own witnesses and exhibits. Then the city can question the alleged violator's witnesses. After both rounds of testimony by the part of the city and on the part of the alleged violator, each party is asked to give a closing argument, first by the city and then by the alleged violator. After those three steps are taken, this board will close the public hearing portion of the case to discuss it and to make appropriate actions. Before we begin the public hearings, we will have all potential witnesses please stand up and be sworn in by the secretary of the board. Also, please turn off all your cell phones to silence or off.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can be seated.
We're going to start with agenda item number 4. (707) Chesapeake Drive, Stephen L. Smith Trust. Is anyone here to represent the trust?
Yes.
Hi.
Tina Hinton. I am the trustee of the trust.
Thanks. Do you have any objections to the city's evidence being
No.
taken in?
Sir.
Please do that, Bobby, as soon as you can.
Yes, sir.
City staff,
Ready?
present your case, please.
Thank you. Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. This is case number 18-800000869. The property address is 707 Chesapeake Drive. The listed owner is a trust and the name is Stephen L. Smith. It's a vacant property. Nobody was residing in it at the time. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all of the photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all my notices, including notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative documents to include case summaries, property appraiser and tax collector records, as well as any related emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All of the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator or representative are the exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All my notices are mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent both return receipt as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of Officer Gasson, please?
And he's not finished yet. He's just asking if those to be accepted. He's got more testimony.
Okay. Is there any reason why this evidence shouldn't be recorded?
No.
Thank you. You supposed to go again?
Yes.
Yeah, finish up.
Sorry.
That's okay. We've had numerous contact with the owner throughout this case. This case originally started November 16th of 2018. The property's vacant. It was in poor condition. There's boards on the roof to hold the remnants of a tarp. The porch is in poor condition. The stairs appear unsafe. Actually, trees are growing up through the porch on the, what would be, I guess, the northwest side of the property. Siding's coming off the building. The front windows don't have the necessary trim around it, and they appear to be unfinished. The lot was overgrown, and grass is growing into the roadway, and there are Brazilian pepper trees on the property. On November 16th of 2018, the notice of violation was mailed. We did not receive a green card back from that mailing. On January 18th, I conducted a reinspection. There was some minor cleanup that had been done on the property, but the property's still not in compliance. I also noted on that date that no permits for any work had been pulled for the property through the city system. On January 18th of 2019, the notice of hearing was mailed. It was returned not deliverable as addressed and unable to forward. On February 2nd of 2019, I posted the property and signed the affidavit of posting. Conducted a final inspection on the property this morning. It's still not in compliance. What's before the board are violations of City Code 8-40, which is the duty to maintain private property, basically upkeep it, prevent it from becoming a public nuisance. 8-52, which are the nuisance prohibitions, would deal with trimming the grass, making sure it's in shape, not allowing debris to be built up on the property. 13303, which is the tree exemptions, it requires any property that has a certificate of occupancy issued at any point in time. It's not allowed to have any Brazilian pepper trees anywhere on that property. Then we get into City Ordinance 6-1, which is the adoption of the 2017 the 2017 Florida Building Code and the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, also known as IPMC. Under IPMC, the violations of 301.3, which deal with vacant structures and land. In summary, the IPMC states that vacant structures and land, vacant structures and premises thereof, or vacant land shall be maintained in a clean, safe, and secure and sanitary condition as provided herein, so as not to cause a blighting problem or adversely affect the public health or safety. The next one under IPMC is 304.6, which deals with the exterior walls and structure. They have to be basically not having holes in them. 304.10 deals with stairs, decks, and balconies. They have to be in safe condition and not in poor condition. IPMC 304.13 deals with windows and door frames. It requires that all windows be properly framed as well as all doors. As you can see in the photographs, there's some pictures of the window frames that are basically absent. And lastly, IPMC 304.7, which requires the roof to be intact and have proper drainage. The presence of tarping on the roof or the remnants of tarping would indicate that the roof is probably not in good condition. Those are all the violations before the board for your consideration at this time, and I have nothing further.
Board have any questions of the city staff? Based on the evidence and the statement that the officer made, do you have any questions of the city staff?
No, it's pretty accurate. The property, I purchased property in the condition that he's described. I have started just doing the light cleanup, but my request is for a 90-day extension. There's an extensive amount of work that does need done to the property.
Does the board have any questions for the lady sitting over there,
have
the
a question.
respondent?
Ma'am, when did you make this purchase?
It's been several years ago. I'm still trying to complete my own personal residence, which is around the corner.
Okay, so you've owned this property for a number of years now, you say?
A few years, yes.
Okay, thank you.
City staff have any questions for the respondent?
I have no questions, thank you.
Can you summarize the case, please?
I
I'm
think she has a
sorry.
question.
Yeah, I just want to know why the extension that you're asking for 90 days, why that would make a difference having had it for the past 2 years, still going forward, in your view?
I started building a house in Tarpon Springs, which is around the corner. And unfortunately, that is taking me much longer than I had anticipated. So basically, I was trying to at least maintain the yard, but I've had some personal problems. So that's been a little lax, unfortunately. So it's an extensive amount of work. So that's why I'm asking for the 90 days.
Thank you.
Staff summarize the case at all?
I don't have a
Anymore?
closing, thank you.
Would you like to summarize your position
That's pretty much it. I just
that you want
need
90 days?
the 90 days.
We're going to close the public portion of this case, and I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that at the time of the alleged violations, sections City Code 8-40, City Code 8-52, City Code 133.03, City Code 6-1, City Code IMPMC 301.3, City Code IMPMC 304.7, City Code IMPC 304.10, City Code IMPC 304.13, City Code IMPC 304.6 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were in force and effect, and that the respondent is in violation of thereof.
Second.
We have a second. Bobby, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mrs. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Demasis,
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs,
Yes.
Ms. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks.
Yes.
Complete your roll call.
Does the city have any recommendation?
The city has no issue with 90 days. There is an extensive amount of work. I know the case started for us in November, but there's going to be permitting issues and things like that. So I do think 90 days is reasonable. And I think based on the circumstances, probably $100 a day to make sure that that gets taken care of in a timely manner.
Do you have any issue with the compliance date or the amount of money?
So it would be $100 after the 90 days.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Close the public portion of this case and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the respondent shall have until May 23, 2019, to bring the property into compliance with the code sections referred to previously, or suffer a fine of $100 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Second.
Any discussion by the board? Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tellier,
Yes.
Mr. Demasis,
Yes.
Mrs. Norfleet,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The order that we just made will be issued within the next 10 days and mailed to you. Okay? Thank you very much for your appearance. That's it. Yes. Oh, the rehearing. give me a little bit more information about the rehearing?
Agenda item 18.
Okay.
It's an email, basically.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can go ahead and read the rule as it relates to motions for rehearing.
Okay, thank you.
Can I read that rule?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and read the rule of procedure regarding requests for rehearing so the board knows. I'm reading from your rules of procedure that have been in place for about 30 years. Rule 5, Section 3 provides, any aggrieved party may petition the board to reconsider or rehear any board order resulting from public hearing. This petition must be made in writing and filed with the board secretary no later than 30 days after the execution of the order and prior to the filing of any appeal. Upon receipt of the petition, the board will consider whether or not to reconsider or rehear the case. A motion to approve a petition to reconsider or rehear must be made by a board member who previously voted on the prevailing side. A motion to approve a petition to reconsider or rehear a case must set the date and time for the hearing. The rehearing may be held at the time of the consideration of the petition if the petitioner and all other parties agree. The board will not hear oral argument or evidence in determining whether to grant the petition or to reconsider or rehear. So you're to make your determination based solely upon the written petition that's in front of you without hearing from either side.
Do I have a motion?
Before you do that, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that I have the proper document in front of me
Certainly.
to consider. Can you give me,
Number 18, it's a request, it's 18-800000914-608 Royal Drive, Tina Henson.
okay, this is the case involving the support animals, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much. I'm aware of what we're discussing. Thank you.
Discussion?
So has the permission to rehear it been granted?
No, you're to make
We
that
have to
determination.
decide that first.
Right. So in your motion, it could be you move to grant the petition for rehearing and then decide whether or not you're actually going to hear it today. And you would only hear it today if both parties agreed to that. Or your motion would be to deny the request for rehearing.
I'll make a motion to deny the request for a rehearing.
Second.
All those
Discussion.
in favor?
Discussion first.
Ooh,
Yeah.
discussion,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm basing my suggestion that we do not rehear the case based on the fact that I think we had an adequate hearing initially, and that I don't see anything in this letter. I feel sorry for the lady in question that she needs support animals, but I think that we made the proper decision based on the fact that we represent and have to look towards the entire city of Tarpon Springs, and I think her neighbors, either now or potential neighbors, should have the same protections that anybody has in other neighborhoods. So I don't know that an exception should be made, and I think that Ms. Hinton should have been aware of what the situation was when she moved to that particular area, and I don't know that an exemption will be granted by the zoning board, and I certainly don't think that anything that any further documentation that she might provide would affect my original decision. So I stand by my decision, and I think that the board made the proper decision in the case originally.
I
And that's why
concur.
I'm saying I would deny a rehearing.
I would say basically because it's a support animal and she does have documentation.
But if you check the ADA requirements, there's nothing in there that allows for pigs or unleashed animals or untrained animals, and it only allows for one animal
as a support animal.
And she requested it for a pig and for a rooster and for some chickens.
Okay.
None of that was included in the ADA requirement.
All those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
So the petition has been denied.
Petition's been denied. Item number 8 on the agenda.
8.
Yes, 401 East Boyer.
Sir, were you sworn in?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I have your name and your relationship to the property, please?
My name is Dave Kittenplon, and I am the president of Foresight Constructors. We're an LLC. We currently have several vacant parcels in Tarpon. We have built many units in conjunction with neighborhood homes of West Florida in the past in this community. We have built for some nonprofits. The Housing Authority currently has 2 of our units that we built back a few years ago. We have purchased some additional parcels, including the one that's in question here.
All right, sir, you've answered the question.
Okay.
We need to have the city present its case, and then you'll have the opportunity
I'm
to
sorry.
present your case. Okay. They just wanted to confirm who you were.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. This is a repeat violator case. It was for a period of 8 days from January 18th of 2019 to January 25th of 2019. The repeat violator original case was case number 17-800000411, and that was for a violation of City Code 8-40 and 8-52. At that point in time, the property was established. There were no fines attached to that previous case. The property, like I stated, was just established. This is case number 19-800000038. The property is addressed as 401 East Boyer, but it is a vacant lot owned by Foresight Constructors with a parcel number of 132715 06138 0000060. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all of the photographs associated with this case. Exhibit number 2, did we establish if you had any objections to the
Not yet.
document? Okay. You want to?
Do you have any objections to the evidence that's being presented by the staff?
No, sir.
Thank you.
As stated, my photographs are exhibit number 1. Exhibit number 2 are the notices, notice of violation and notice of hearings. Administrative documents, case summaries, tax collector and property appraiser records, and any associated emails are exhibit number 3. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting, and exhibit number 5 is the affidavit of prosecution costs. All the photographs and exhibits were given to the violator, exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All my notices are mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent both return receipt as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these exhibits into the record as evidence.
Clerk, please accept these into
Yes.
evidence, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We've had email contact with the owner of this property. January 18th of this year was the initial inspection. I got it twofold. I got a complaint from one of the city departments about concrete, part of the brick wall you can see in the photographs when they come around had fallen into the sidewalk. And then I also was flagged down by a pedestrian in the area. Actually, I was on my way based on the city complaint. The pedestrian flagged me down about the bricks in the sidewalk. When I got there, I noticed numerous pieces of the very short brick wall. That there was an existing house there numerous years ago, so it had a cinder block wall around it, somewhat of a retaining wall. Over the years, it's become extremely dilapidated. They have made efforts to clean it up in the past. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, people, nature, combination of both, that wall is getting worse, and pieces of the brickwork are in the street. They're also used as projectiles a lot of times at other people in police cars. So that's kind of a problem as well. On January 18th, the notice of violation, notice of hearing, the repeat violation, notice of hearing were mailed. The green card was returned unsigned. The envelope was returned not deliverable as addressed. January 26th, I conducted a reinspection, and it was in compliance as of that date. We have January 25th because we received the phone call the previous day for the reinspection, so we go based on that date. February 2nd, the sign was posted and the affidavit of posting was completed. What was before the board, as I stated, was 8-40 and 8-52 were the prior violations. They had to do with debris, not maintaining private property. Before the board to be established with this case are 8-22, which is just the accumulation of trash on that property. Unfortunately, it gets used somewhat as a dump. It's a vacant lot, it's not secured, and it is constantly having trash dumped on it. It is constantly becoming a problem. That's the purpose of also establishing it before this board for the accumulation of trash. With that being said, 3603 covers fences, walls, and hedges of the city code that says all fences, walls, and hedges must be kept in a non-dilapidated condition, a non-poor condition, and be kept up. So I'd also like to establish that violation. As of right now, all of those violations are in compliance, so there's nothing outstanding. And as I stated, it is a repeat violator case for the 2 violations of 840 and 852 for a period of 8 days. And then the other 2 violations of 822 and 36.03 are new violations to be established by this board. And the city has nothing further.
Do you have any questions for the city staff, sir?
I guess my question is that we try our best to comply. And I have,
Do
no,
you have any questions,
I'm-
specific questions for the staff person?
no, I do not.
Thank you very much. We go ahead and give us your response then.
I can do this now, sorry.
Yes, please.
As I was saying before, we've been in the community for 15 years. We built many homes in conjunction with neighborhoods of West Florida. We have always tried to comply with everything that the code here. We have been cited in the past for different parcels and have immediately corrected any deficiencies that we have. I don't live here. I live in St. Petersburg. We do have, through the years, we have had different people handling our maintenance of the properties, okay? We have hired a company called Mugo Brothers, and they have done an excellent job, in my opinion, for me. And back in 2017, we were cited with a violation, and we, with the Mugo Brothers, that's when we contracted with them. And a letter was sent, and this is just to show that we care and that we want to comply with everything that is ever done up here. And this was from Karen from Mugro's office. It says, "This is Karen from Mugro Brothers. We are a landscaping company." This is to Officer Gasson, by the way.
Do you want that put into evidence? sir?
Sure.
He won't get it back.
You won't get it back.
That's
Do you have
okay. It's just a
copy?
copy of an email. This is Karen from Mugro Brothers. We are a landscaping company that will be taking care of the various violations at that time. I called and left a message for you earlier. I would like to talk to you regarding the above-mentioned violations and implement a schedule to maintain the properties so that no more violations will occur and will make your job much easier. We want to make your job easier. And then that was in August of 2017. We had another issue in March of 2018, and Mike Mugro and myself and Officer Gasson met at the property, and I pledged to him that we would do anything and everything to comply with all the code. My problem is that we can clear the property today, and there's mattresses and chairs and everything else on the property tomorrow. In this particular case, I mean, it was obvious that we have been in compliance until it was obvious to me that there was vandalism to the wall. Did it need to be torn down? Absolutely. But there was vandalism that caused all of this debris, and it was a mess. I totally agree. All we want to do is stay in compliance. We want to keep our properties clean. We want to stay in this community, and we want to build additional properties, particularly for nonprofits, and we want to be a good corporate citizen or a good community citizen. I ask for your guidance and Officer Gaston's guidance to figure out how we can stay in compliance and not get repeat violator. I even gave Officer Gaston my personal phone number and Mike Mugro's, and I gave Mike Mugro 100% authority without my authorization to clean up or to correct any deficiency immediately. I don't know what else to do. If you all can give me some guidance, I'll follow it.
Does the board have any questions of the respondent? Staff have any questions of the respondent?
No, I do not.
Did you summarize your case?
Just briefly, I mean, we did meet out there. We've tried to discuss some things. As been before this board numerous times, and you're well aware of the mere fact that you own a piece of property and you do the best you can. Part of the reason why I establish properties is because more needs to be done. That's whether the city decides what you need to do isn't necessarily up to us. I mean, I have suggestions, but I can't mandate any of those things. Unfortunately, more effort needs to be put into it. There were numerous times where there's property where he didn't get written up for it. Phone calls were made to Mike Mugro, and he said, "Hey, I'm coming by to take care of something. I found something. I hadn't seen it yet. By the time I went by, it was all taken care of." So, yes, but apparently more effort needs to be taken, and hence the reason why we're here. There probably could have been 2 or 3 previous repeat violators on this property that were never brought before this board. So, I understand he's a corporate citizen. He's trying to do the best he can. More needs to be done. Those things have been discussed outside of this. This board's position isn't to decide that necessarily. But it continues to be a problem. It's a problem to the point where things like that brick wall become projectiles that are thrown at police. They're thrown at other people. They're used as weapons, and it's their property. And that's why we're here, for them to maintain and take care of their property, whatever means they have to do that by, so people don't get hurt and it doesn't become a nuisance. So that's the position I'm in, and that's all I have at this time for the city.
Tardier, can you summarize what you want?
Is it too much to ask? And I know I'm one person and he's got a heck of a hard job. For me or Mike Mugro to be given a call, and I know I didn't know that you had talked to Mike Mugro in the past, but I'm sure that has occurred, is if there is a violation, if I just knew or Mike knew, it would be taken care of that same day or within reason.
Okay, thank you. I close this public portion of the case, and I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir.
I move that based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law, that Foresight Contractors was in violation of sections 8-22, 36.03, 8-40, 8-52 of the city's code of the city code for the city of Tarpon Springs from January 18th, 2019 through January 25th, 2019, a total of 8 days, and a fine of $50 per day for the 8 days, totaling $400. In addition, I move that the city be awarded $99 for the cost incurred in prosecuting the case, for a total of $499.
Mm-hmm. You did the way you separated it out. That will work.
You did separate it out.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a second?
I'll say.
You'll second. Great. Discussion? Thank you.
I'd like to justify my motion, or at least explain it, in that I would have gone for much less because it appears that there's some sincerity on the part of the person representing Foresight contractors or constructors. However, based on the testimony of the inspector, it appears that there were at least a few incidents that weren't reported to us. So I think that any thought on my part to have a smaller fine was negated by the fact that they've already gotten a few breaks down the road. So I think $50 sends a message, and hopefully we won't see these people back in here ever again.
Okay. Anyone else?
Would you do the math for me one more time? I think I concur with what you're saying.
Well, 8 days at $50 a day is $400, and $99 for prosecuting the case is $499.
I understood. So the same fine for the repeat violations and for the other. Okay, second.
Already seconded. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs? Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
You want me to summarize it for me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, sir, Foresight Constructors has been found in violation of the 4 code sections that were cited. As for the fine, there is a fine for the repeat violations that have occurred in the amount of $50 a day for 8 days. The total fine is $400. The city has also been awarded $99 in costs in prosecuting the case for a total of $499. You'll be receiving an order in the mail within about the next 10 days. Okay?
Thank you for coming.
Okay. One note, I received the U.S. mail, but I never received the certified part of that.
It's okay. You can
But not that it matters. I mean, I just,
staff afterwards. Okay, thank you, sir.
thank you, board. Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 7, 19, agenda item, 19-800000039, 226 South Gross Avenue. Mr. Ricketts? Could you identify yourself,
I'm
please?
Easton Ricketts, owner of the property 226 South Gross.
Great. Do you have any legal objection to the city's evidence becoming part of this
No.
procedure?
Thank
could
you. Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. This case before the board is to be established. It's currently in compliance. Case number 19-800000039. The property address is 226 South Gross Avenue. It is a vacant lot owned by Mr. Ricketts. The parcel number is 132715 25272 0000110. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all the photographs. Exhibit number 2 are my notices of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 is administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector database, and any related emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits were given to the violator exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County property record, Pinellas County property appraiser and tax collector databases. And my notice of violations and notice of hearing are sent both return receipt as well as first-class mail. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these into the record as evidence.
Thank you.
Thank you. This case started January 18th, 2019. Coincidentally, it had to do with the last case because it's directly across the street. Same citizen that flagged me down about the previous case brought up to my attention Mr. Ricketts' property. As you can see in the photographs, it's overgrown. It's a vacant lot. It also, unfortunately, is used somewhat as a dump by various people for whatever reason, which unfortunately seems to happen with vacant lots. At that time, as you can see in the pictures, it was overgrown, especially along that western side, along a fence line, and then there was furniture and other debris dumped on the property. On January 18th, a notice of violation and notice of hearing were mailed and return signed. Conducted a reinspection on February 12th. The property was in compliance on that date. On February 2nd, I posted the property. Before the board, I've had so far with this owner since 2017. This would be the third case. That's the reason why I'm just presenting it to be established. Just almost the same effort as before. Got to get more attention on taking care of the property. It's unfortunate where it's located. Maybe some other steps need to be taken, but it is a nuisance property at this point. So what's before the board is 8-22, which is the accumulation of trash, 8-40, the duty to maintain private property, and 8-52, which is the nuisance prohibitions, which deals with trimming, edging, mowing, and not allowing any debris to be on the property, and to take care of the trees and so on and so forth, all the vegetation. As I stated, as of the 12th, the property was in compliance, and I'm just asking the city to find those violations to have existed and to establish the property to prevent any future violations. And that's all the city has at this time.
Establish the property as a.
For those
repeat
three
violation.
violations, 822, 840, and 852, correct.
Does the board have any questions for the staff? Do you have any questions for the staff, Rickett?
I don't really have any questions. I'm aware of what he's talking about with the debris, but like the other guy, I live in Ocala, and I pay somebody to keep it cut and keep it mowed and stuff. And during the winter times, I pay him to go by there once or twice a month to cut it and keep it clean and whatever. There have been a lot of stuff dumped on it, like what he's saying. And each time, throughout the summer times, he go there like twice. Every 2 weeks, you go there and mow and cut and move stuff off of it. And it's, I understand that it's there and it has trash on it and whatnot, but it's really difficult to get all that stuff off of it constantly and to keep paying to get it moved. And you move it today, tomorrow, or the next day, there's more stuff there. And it's the constant, even the guy that I paid to remove the stuff, the other gentleman that was just here, he said he moved a lot of the bricks from the other gentleman that was here property. So I had to have him paid him to move some of that as well.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the owner? City staff,
I don't have any questions.
summarize?
No, I don't have any summary, thank you.
Would you like to summarize your case? How much time do you need?
He's in compliance
It's
already.
in compliance right now. I had it.
In compliance, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, like I said, as soon as I got the notice, I called the guy up and have him go out there and move it. And he isn't from Tarpon either, so he thought he could put the stuff right on the. He cleaned up everything, but he put it on the outside. He thought that the city would have moved all that. But then when I called back for it, and they said that no, I had him go back out there right away and remove all the stuff. Because I'm always trying to be in compliant with what's going on.
Thank you. We're ready to make a motion.
I'd make a motion.
Public
I move-
portion is closed.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in the law, that at the time of the alleged violations, sections of the City Code 8-22, 8-40, and 8-42 of the Code of
52.
Ordinances of the City of
52.
Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. At the time of the notice of violation, the respondents were in violation of said code sections. However, they are now in compliance.
Can I get a second?
I just want to make sure that it was read as 8-42. Everybody understands it's actually 8-50.
Yes, 22, 8-40, and 8-52. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Call the roll, please, clerk.
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Mrs. Nortfleet? Yes. Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs? Yes. Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Please your roll call.
You want me to summarize? So, Mr. Ricketts, the board has found that there was a violation of those 3 code sections that were cited, but the property is now in compliance. There's no fine associated with this case. However, what it does is it puts the case in the possibility of a repeat violation mode. So if the case comes back to the Code Enforcement Board within the next 5 years, it'll be considered a repeat violation, and the fines could be doubled, up to $500 a day. In addition to that, the fines would begin immediately upon the inspection finding that there is a violation. So it's very, very important to keep the property cleared. Otherwise, it could be considered a repeat.
I have a quick question for you. Like I was stating earlier, with, and this is no joke or anything like that. If you remove the stuff from the today, like literally in a couple of days, there'll be almost the same amount of trash on there. And it's no joke. So it's really difficult, and I know that's my problem, it's not you guys' problem, but it's really difficult between the tenant houses that's right across the street from it and from the vacant lot. It's constantly. I go down there sometimes and clean up myself, and I also pay somebody to do it. Like I said, in summertime, every 2 weeks they go down there and clean, and we get at least 5 or 6 trash bags off of it. So if he goes by there one time and they see it might be clean today, and then he go by there tomorrow and there all that trash back on there. It's really hard to, and then if I'm gonna get fined for that, you know what I mean? It's like,
We understand. You'll get your order within the next 10 days. Appreciate you complying with it. Thank you for your time. That's it.
Okay.
all right.
Okay. Number 5 on the agenda, 518 East Lime Street, Florida Land Trust.
These people have not been sworn in.
Be sworn in before.
Sir, before you testify, thank you for raising your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about to give us the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir.
Could I have your names, please?
Michael Shimshoni.
You have to speak in
Speak
the
into the
microphone.
microphone.
My name is Michael Shimshoni. I'm a real estate broker with Affordable Realty and Property Management.
Thank you. And ma'am?
Eladia Ippolito, managing member of an LLC, which is a co-trustee of the land trust. That is the entity of the
Ma'am, you're
owns
gonna have to
property.
speak up, please. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody
Hear you.
on this side is able to hear you.
Okay. Eladia Ippolito, managing member of the IMI 464259. I'm sorry, no, of the IMI 464 LLC, a co-trustee of the Kibbe Tarpon Florida Land Trust Number 1.
And your name again, please?
Eladia Ippolito.
Ippolito. Do you have any legal objections to the evidence that is going to be presented, being
No.
put into this?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement, case number 18-800000926. Property address is 518 East Lime Street. It's a small tenement building. I think it has 4 units. 3 of them, I think, are occupied. As stated, it's owned by Kibbe Tarpon Florida Land Trust Number 1. This property's been before this board previously, but somehow it was deeded to a new property in the absence of that other case. So a new case was opened for the continuing violations on the property. Exhibit number 1, going before the board, are my photographs. Exhibit number 2, my notices, notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3, administrative docs, include the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and any related emails. Exhibit number 4 is an affidavit of the posting and a copy of the sign. All the photographs and exhibits that were given to the violator, exact copies of what's being presented to this board. All notices were mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All my notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent both first class and return receipt requested. And Mr. Chairman, please accept these into the record as evidence.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bobby?
Yes,
And-
sir. I will.
We've had no contact with the owner related to this case. This case started back in November of 2018. The property, as I stated, is an ongoing public nuisance. Numerous police calls out there. It's in very poor condition, trash and debris everywhere. Now there's also an abandoned vehicle on it, which I'm going to have to deal with when we're done with this. There's also a fire that was about 5 years ago, the back part of the property. And if you notice in some of the pictures, some of the later pictures I have of what looks like some of the truss work and the back end of the building, you can see the fire damage. As I stated, I don't believe anybody's living in it, but I think there may be a possibility somebody's living in that last unit, which is more than likely not safe to be housing somebody. All those conditions, we decided to, as I stated, create a new case because we found out the property had been quitclaimed. The prior owners are in fine status for it. Then the quitclaim occurred, so we started a new case on the property. The notice of violation was mailed out November 21st, was returned unclaimed. The reinspection was conducted on December 29th of 2018. There was no change in the property. If anything, it had gotten worse. January 18 of 2019, the notice of hearing was mailed. The green card was signed by the registered agent for the company. February 2nd of 2019, I posted the property and signed the affidavit of posting. I conducted a final inspection on January 13th, which was commensurate with a police call at the property of a disturbance and some people under the influence of drugs. So what's before the board at this point in time is City Code 822, the accumulation of trash. There's trash all over that property. It continues to be covered in trash, and it's ongoing issue. 8-40, which is a duty to maintain private property causing the public nuisances that I've mentioned previously. 8-52, having to do with debris, maintaining the property, the vegetation, so on and so forth. 6-1 is the adoption of the Florida Building Code and the International Property Maintenance Code, which then allows me to cite under IPMC 302-1, which is sanitation of the exterior of this building. It's in poor condition. It's not kept very clean. There's trash everywhere, and it's simply not being maintained. 304.7 talks about the roof and drainage. It's clear to see in the picture, although I'm not a building inspector. I can usually tell when there's holes in the roof that it's probably not in good shape. 304.10 deals with the stairs, deck, and balconies. There's a deck out front and also the overhang, which is in very poor condition. You can also see that in the photographs of how poor of a condition, and I would almost be very close to considering it a health hazard and possibly to be condemned as an unsafe structure or uninhabitable. So those are the violations that I have before the board at this time, and that's all the city has at this moment.
Does the board have any questions of the city staff? Do you have any questions of the city staff? Question.
My information was that the sanitation issues and the vegetation issues had been resolved and complied out, and the only thing remaining are the structural issues, which would take time because it would require an architect and it would require floor plans and permits. So
right now, what you're giving us is your response to the case. We were asking for do you have any questions for the staff about what he said?
no, I guess not.
So why don't you give us your response?
Well, I just did. I thought vegetation and sanitation was in compliance as of recently, and that which was still pending and requires time to resolve are the structural issues.
Okay. Certainly. Board have any questions for the respondent?
On what basis was that? Why did you think you were in compliance?
The property manager said that he recently had the sanitation issues and the vegetation issues resolved.
But they didn't resolve it through the code board.
I assume that that Codes was contacted, and whether or not Codes has gone out to inspect, I don't know.
This is not the first time we're here in front of the board.
We cannot hear you,
Need to speak
sir.
up, sir,
Hold the
please.
microphone.
This is not the first time we came to this board. In my previous experience with the same officer taught me that he comes about a week before the inspection, before the hearing, and regardless what happens that particular week, it's irrelevant to the hearing. So what I did was I hired the company to come in and clean the property. They came in on Monday. I came myself there on Friday, last Friday, to the property, and I went over with the people what to clean up. And as of yesterday, the property was cleaned up, with the exception of the car that we don't know who the car belongs to. I'm willing to meet the officer on the property today and look at it. And if this property is not in compliance, I really don't know what his guidelines for compliance means. So I can say that the two issues here, one, the structure, I mean, somehow he commingles the two issues together, sanitation and structure, and the two different issues. As far as the sanitation, we are trying to stay on top of it. We send people there at least twice or three times a month to clean the property up. There's a property right next door that I think there was a structure which was demolished, and they've been throwing a lot of stuff into this property. Like I said, I was there on Friday, and most of the debris there came from the property next door, the scaffoldings, the stuff that really did belong to the property. There was some carts that didn't really belong to any of the tenants there, and we made sure everything is gone. And we tried before to come up with a couple of solutions for the property. We built up a little shade where people can put the trash, so the trash won't be visible to the naked eye for somebody who drive by the street. So it will be a cover area. That's something we did do. And then at one point, I talked to the owner, and we decided to build a fence on the front of the property to prevent people from coming in. The police came in and shut us down almost immediately. They said that you're not allowed to build a property fence. You got to get a permit. It's got to be at least 25 feet from the street, which is really, now you get into the building, which made it really impossible to put a fence up at the front. So because this option was no longer available to us, we decided just to keep up with the property on a regular basis, and we've been cleaning it up. We're in compliance several times, and I sent people to clean the property this week for the specific reason that it will be in compliance in front of this hearing. As far as the condition of the structure, he's talking about condemnation. People live in the property. There's no roof leaks. We respond to every call that we have to the property. It's a block construction. So the building is very solid. There's no stress cracks or things of that nature. It's true, it's old and maybe needs some TLC, but to go from there to condemnation and demolition and stuff of that nature, there's a big gap, which I think a professional will realize right away that this is not the case here.
Could you are confirming that there are tenants living in that structure currently?
That is correct.
Thank you.
The board have any questions for the respondent? Any further questions? Does the city have any questions?
I have a couple. How long have you been representing this property, sir?
Since
Approximately.
but I would say 10.
How long?
10.
10 years? Okay, so you were well aware of the prior violations in the previous cases, correct?
I showed up.
That came to this code board, correct?
before and
Okay. Second question, how many times did you call my office requesting a reinspection
Numerous.
with this case?
With this particular case?
With this particular-
None, because we just
none.
complied this week.
So another question, who decides whether you're in compliance or not?
Well, I hired the company to take care of
Kind
it.
of a rhetorical question. I have to be the one to inspect the property.
Well,
If
I
I'm
assume-
not notified, I can't put you in compliance, you understand? And we had that discussion, correct?
Sure did.
Okay, I have no further questions.
May I interject with, it stated that the inspection date was going to be on the 12th. Did you not go out there and inspect it on the 12th?
Inspected on the 13th, when I got called out there on a police call.
Because of the car, probably. That
No.
sounds like a new
I've got-
issue.
If the reason I got called out there was 4 of us officers went out there because of a disturbance in one of your apartments related to 2 extremely drunk individuals having a fight out in the common area of your property. That's why I got called out there on the 13th. I was unavailable on the 12th. I don't do my inspections necessarily based on the calendar. That's approximately when I'll do it. And the thing about it is you should be in compliance, period. Not just on that day at that time that I might come by. You should be in compliance the next day. If the inspection's on the 12th, well, a reasonable person would be led to believe that you would be in compliance on the 13th. And unfortunately, it wasn't anywhere near that.
May I ask what type of violations did you see as far as trash and debris is concerned?
There's trash all over the property, as I stated. There's trash cans visible. The vehicle is a moot point because it's not before this board for consideration. The building still hasn't been touched. All of the International Property Maintenance Codes cited earlier are still an issue. There's debris on the property. I mean, it's grossly obvious. I think there's a couple of shopping carts out front with trash in them.
They're not there.
And the interesting thing is just so the board kind of understands, the property next door, one of the pictures had a structure. It has since been demolished. That property owner dealt with us. He's still somewhat in violation, and I've been keeping very close track of those 2 properties to see if magically trash from A ends up on B, and that doesn't seem to be the case. The interesting thing is when I was on that property on the 13th, a large amount of trash that was not on the vacant lot suddenly was on the vacant lot, and some of it I had recalled being on 518 was now on the lot that no longer had the structure because the section of the fence had been removed, dividing the 2 properties, which made it extremely easy for stuff to go back and forth. So it is an ongoing problem. It continues to be an ongoing problem. Folks here are well aware of that ongoing problem, and this case is why we're here.
On the 12th of this month at 5 p.m., the property was in compliance. You can argue that some of the debris went to the property next door, most likely because this debris came from next door. I saw myself items that came from building was just nearly demolished, and they couldn't have come from this property. So I see why these items ended up next door. But as of 5 p.m. on February 12th, the property was in compliance as far as trash and debris. As far as the other items, I cannot say, but this particular item was in compliance.
Okay, thank you. We're going to close the public portion of this case, and I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violations, sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, 6.1 IMPC 302.1 IMPC 304.7 IPMC 304.10, the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were in force and effect, and that the respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Ms. Wade had it first, but thank you.
Or doesn't matter.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson? Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Okay, there will be an order within the next 10 days sent out to you by U.S. Mail.
We need to get the fine portion of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. where am I?
The second half. So we need,
Second
we need the
Thanks.
motion on compliance date and the dollar amount of the fine.
Okay, can you give us an idea of what you
Yeah,
want?
and I want the board to just kind of understand, I alluded to it previously. I had a previous case, which is currently in fine status, to the tune of upwards of $63,000 on this property. Yes, it was under a prior owner. The interesting thing is same property manager, so it was quick claimed, which, as we're well aware, suddenly makes the other case kind of disappear a little bit, and we have to be back before the board to revisit exactly the same problem, managed by exactly the same company at exactly the same nuisance property. That was started in August of 2018, and then I had to restart it again in November because of that quick claim deed. The property is a significant nuisance. I've been here as a police officer for 21 years. I've been familiar with that property since I was in training here in 1997. It will continue to be a problem until it is significantly dealt with. I would simply ask that, and as long as the folks here understand that everything has to be complied with, there's no separation of the sanitation versus the structure. I would say 30 days because somehow I magically have the odd feeling there's going to be another quick claim deed for this property, and $250 a day. And that's what the city would recommend, and that's solely based on we continue to chase our tail on this property, and right now this is the only avenue we have to try to deal with this property. That's the city's recommendation.
Can I get a motion?
I move that the respondent shall have until March 18th, excuse me, you said 60?
30.
March 18th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, and under the IPMC Building Code 6.1, items 302.1, 304.7, 304.10, or suffer a fine of $250 per day for each day thereafter that the respondent remain in violation of said code sections.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Could you call the roll, please, clerk?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet? Yes. Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
So the property has been found in violation of the code sections that were listed. Property owner's been given until March 18th to bring the property into compliance. Should you fail to bring the property in compliance with every code section cited, there'll be a fine of $250 a day levied for every day thereafter. It will be a written order. It'll be issued within about 10 days. And it'll be sent to the address listed by the property appraiser and tax collector's records. Any questions?
Since you decide to tie up these two items, some of them has to do with structural issues. I guess the police person had asked for compliance or some sort of information or maybe a report from a civil engineer. That takes more than 30 days, and you all know that.
Okay.
So 30 days is, for trash and debris, it's reasonable, but since you decide to tie this up, I believe that 30 days is not reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the session. We appreciate your time. Going back to number one.
No.
It's deferred. Number one is not. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, there's the more current one, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Number two, 18-8000109, 710 North Avenue. Is anybody here for that case? Go directly to you.
Thank you, Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Code Enforcement. This is case 18-800000109. The property address is 710 North Avenue. The current property owner is Otilla Andino. It's a vacant structure. This has been before the board before the previous owner died. Property's been sold, so we have a new case before the board. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are my photographs. All my notices, violation notice of hearing are exhibit number 2. Administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and any associated emails are exhibit number 3. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting. All my notices are mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. They're all mailed via first class as well as return receipt. And Mr. Chairman, please accept all the exhibits into the record as evidence.
Bobby, will you accept them into
Yes, sir.
evidence when they get to you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Starting off, we've had significant contact with the current owner of the property. Matter of fact, we had contact with the owner of the property before they bought the property, so they were kind of aware of what was going on with the property. They've been in the office. We've had phone calls and emails from them. On December 4th, in the midst of an ongoing open fine drawing case, the property was sold to Happy Homes, represented by Otilla Andino, before the code board compliance deadline. Therefore, we had to start the whole case over. So I was incorrect about it being in fine status. It hadn't hit the deadline of the code board yet. It was sold just before the previous code board deadline. So on January 2nd, I conducted another inspection after we sent a courtesy letter to take care of the property. One of the biggest things was whether or not permits were issued to rebuild the structure. It's in significantly poor condition. The roof's got giant holes in it. The walls were never completed inside. What stemmed the previous case was a fire department call on the gentleman who unfortunately had passed away since. Inside of the structure, the walls aren't complete. The electrical is all showing. There's numerous building code violations, but I simply went based on he needs to have a permit. That'll get the building department in there, and they'll decide what all he needs to do. So it kind of gets him in the door. Same thing with the current owner. Moving on. As I stated, January 22nd, the quitclaim deed changed the ownership of it. On January 22nd, at that point, notice of violation and notice of hearing were sent. No green cards were returned to our office or return receipts. On February 2nd, we posted the property. I conducted a final inspection on the 13th, and no permits had been issued. Permit 19-289 has been applied for by the current owner, but it has not yet been approved. So it is simply just an application. It's basically going through the process of determining what their plans are. And I know after talking to the building director here, there's some significant structural issues, I guess, inside of the property. And that's why the permits are still ongoing before approval. So part of the reason to bring this before the board is also to establish more or less a firm timeline to get that permit process and get the rebuild process going on it, or the demolition of the building and starting from scratch. But along those lines, there's still a little bit of a trash issue. There's some issues dealing with the fence. One of the things that was brought up, and we had requested a survey, was that there's a fence that runs along the western property line. They were cited for it because I had previously cited the people that live to the west of it, or the property owners to the west of it, who claimed the fence wasn't theirs. So now a survey was produced in 2018, which pretty much shows that fence is on this property line. So that fence is basically this property owner's issue, and it's in poor dilapidated condition. Some of it you can't even see because it's so overgrown by all kinds of vegetation. So what's before the board at this point in time is the duty to maintain private property, the nuisance prohibitions of 8-52, and fences, walls, and hedges under 36.03. There are no building code violations as of yet because, like I said, the permit process is ongoing. But the other violations still exist, but they deal with that structure being in poor condition under 840. So 840 is not in compliance until the building is either removed or fixed. So and it's no longer a dilapidated structure, and as you can see in the photographs, it's in pretty poor condition. So, and at this point in time, the city has nothing further.
Board have any questions of Officer Gasson?
I have a question, officer. Otherwise, we'll just have to most likely ask you this question later. The 3 items that are cited, if we were to ask you for a recommendation or a time estimate based on your experience, how long would it take somebody to actively take care of these 3 violations?
I don't know how the building, that whole process, what I kind of do generally speaking is I work with folks, and if they get their permit approved, and they're currently in the construction process. A building permit in the state of Florida expires after 6 months if you're not working on it. And at that point in time, basically, either the fines can become retroactive based on, say, if the board gave somebody 90 days. And as I stated, I want to establish a firm timeline for progress to occur on it. You can get a demolition permit and start the process today and probably have it within 21 days to 30 days for a demo permit. They are in the process of a remodel permit, but there are some significant plan issues with the structure itself and things that have to be done before the city will approve those. So it's kind of a roundabout answer because I'm not into construction, but as I stated, the amount of cases I have, somebody goes, look, I've got my construction company out there. I'm working with them to deal with that case, and it would probably never come before the board again. If they just stonewall and suddenly don't talk to us and that permit expires in 6 months, then they would be back before you, and they'd be dealing with the fact that I kind of let them have some gravity with the situation, for lack of a better term, if that makes any sense.
Well, it may very well make sense, but it doesn't really answer my question.
I know it was a roundabout answer.
The question is, for these three, not for any other issues, but for these three, what would a reasonable amount of time be if somebody were to attempt to resolve?
To quickly come into compliance would be tear the fence down, tear the building down. It could be done in 30 days. I'm realistically, that is one avenue of compliance. It is the fastest avenue of compliance, and it could be done in
Just might be the most reasonable.
90 days.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions?
Yeah, they're waiting on a permit. That's up to us. Can he comply with 840 other than tearing it down without a permit?
Well, yes, but the issue with the permit is it's in application phase, which means anybody can walk across the hall and go, I want to get a building permit. And then you have to submit your plans. So it's not always the city's issue, because if the city comes back and says, well, wait a minute, you have to rebuild all the trusses. They're not in your plan. So you need to submit plans to us again showing that you're going to rebuild all the trusses. At that point in time, then it's on you. You then show the plans that so they go back and forth with that. And then the plan's approved. And then, like I said, once it's approved, they have 60 days to finalize that permit, or the building inspector goes out, signs off on it. So yeah, demolition is the absolute quickest and most finite way to solve that problem. Otherwise, as I stated, if they get their permit approved and they're in the process of construction and following through with that, you're never going to see them again. The case will be put into compliance and it'll go on its merry way. Does that make any sense? I mean, hopefully that answers your question in that regards.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to summarize, or have you already done that?
I think we covered the
so.
bases.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will close the public portion of this case and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and law that at the time of the alleged violations, sections, City Code 8-40, City Code 8-52, City Code 36.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were in force and effect, and that the respondent was in violation thereof.
A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. And let's go ahead and have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMassis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
City would recommend 90 days and $50 a day.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the respondent shall have until May 16th, 2019 to bring the property into compliance with the code sections 8-40, 8-52, and 36.03, or suffer a fine of $50 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said codes.
Second?
That question.
Mrs. Tellier?
It's seconded. You can discuss now. Go ahead.
Do you think that was a significant enough push for
Basing it
them?
on the city's recommendation, so.
Okay, I didn't hear him say the amount. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call for roll call, please.
Mrs. Tellier? Did you
Yes.
say yes?
Yes.
Thank you, sorry. Mr. DeMasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
And Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 18-800000644, 1017 Beaver Drive, Richard and McClare.
Thank you, Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Code Enforcement, case 18-800000644. Property address is 1017 Beaver Drive. The listed owners is Richard and Laurie McCleary. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are my photographs. All my notices of violation and notice of hearing are Exhibit 2. Exhibit 3, administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser, tax collector records. Exhibit 4, affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All my notices are mailed to the property owner of record based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. All my notice of violations and notice of hearings are sent both first class as well as return receipt requested, certified mail, and Mr. Chairman, please accept these into the record as evidence.
Clerk, please accept it when it gets to you, please.
Yes, sir.
Present your case.
Thank you. We have had some contact with the owner via a letter. This case did start August 21st of last year. I got a citizen complain about a tarp on the roof in lieu of the regular roofing tiles. You can clearly see in the picture, there's a large area that doesn't have any roofing tiles. On November 20th, the notice of violation was mailed and it was returned unclaimed. January 29th, I conducted a reinspection. The reinspection was extended 3 months because I received a letter into the office asking for a 90-day extension. So that 90-day extension was granted. The reinspection was January 29th. You can see from the January 29th picture, looks exactly the same. We then mailed the notice of hearing, and it was returned. We did get it returned to us. February 2nd, the sign was posted, and an affidavit of posting was signed. I did conduct a final inspection on February 13th and took a photograph, and it looks exactly the same. I did have some contact with the owner. They were having an estate sale, which led me to believe there's an impending sale on the property of some sort. It's my intuitive part of me, but I kind of thought that. They said they would be taking care of it, and that's all the answer I got, or my husband would be taking care of it, who's currently out of town. Before the board is a violation of City Code 6-1, which adopts the Florida Building Code and an International Property Maintenance Code, which then under 304.7 says your roof has to be intact. I think we can all generally agree that a tarp does not serve as adequate roofing material in Florida. So those are the 2 violations before the board. The city has nothing further at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to close the public portion of this case and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, section City Code 6-1 and City Code IMP 304.7 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were in effect. Full force, the respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
All those in favor, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Okay.
Can we need fine and?
Recommendations, please.
As I stated, we started this back in August. Absolutely no effort for a permit. There's been nothing going on with this. I think just if they go and get a roofer now, 45 days is probably a reasonable time to not only get the permits and get the roofing section completed within that period of time. And we have no real prior history with this person at all, so $50 a day is reasonable for that. We are coming into hurricane season, and that's going to become an issue if we start getting any wind coming through there anytime soon. So I would say 45 days and $25 a day.
Have you heard from these people?
I changed my mind. I think 25 is fine. I think they're going to sell the house, and it'll probably be before this board again in probably about 46 days.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the respondent shall have until April 15th, 2019, to bring the property into compliance with the code sections, City Code 6-1, City Code IPMC 304.7, or suffer a fine of $30 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to number 9. Is that correct?
That's it. Yes.
Repeat violator 19-800000050, South Pinellas Avenue, Tarpon Springs Retirement.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is a repeat violator case. It started January 24th of 2019. It's currently not in compliance, so it's ongoing at this point. The repeat violator case that stemmed this was for the same property, case number 16-800000056, which is a violation of City Code 8-22, 8-52, 12-1, and 369.251. That previous case was $25 per day. The fine started from August 2nd of 2016 to August 19th of 2017. Currently, those fines in the amount of $9,560.
Repeat the amount, please.
The previous amount was $25 a day.
Yes.
They were in violation for a little over a year, August 2nd of 16 to August 19th of 17, and total fines of $9,560 are still on the books. The case before this board now is case number 19-800000050. This is a vacant lot that would be the southwest corner of Pinellas and Mears. So if you know where the Winn-Dixie is, it's directly across the street to the west, south of the other vacant lot on the north side of Mears. It's a rather large piece of property. It's owned by a group called Tarpon Springs Retirement. The owner or the care of is a James Mentonopoulos. It's parcel number 1327-15-00000-310-0100. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are my photographs. Exhibit number 2, notice of violation and notice of hearings. Exhibit number 3, administrative documents, case summary, property appraiser and tax collector records, a letter from Mr. Mentonopoulos' attorney. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign, and exhibit number 5 is an affidavit of prosecution costs. All the notices were mailed to property owner record based on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. They were mailed via first class as well as certified mail.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, please accept these exhibits into the record as evident.
Clerk, please accept these when they get to
Yes,
you.
sir.
Can you present your case?
Yes, we've had no contact with the owner. As I stated, I think yesterday we received a letter from an attorney. It sounds like he's a friend, but he also happens to be an attorney because it didn't sound like he was representing him per se. But regardless, the case started January 24th, as I stated. Officer Hallaby is our new homeless outreach officer, and for whatever reason, he ended up out in this field where there's a homeless subdivision that's been set up on their property. There's a huge amount of trash, human waste, all kinds of things that unfortunately go along with these type of encampments that get built on vacant lots. Part of the previous case a long time ago was to clear out some of the Brazilian pepper trees, which seem to have a significant effect on opening up the properties, and then consequently they don't become as desirable to be turned into all the debris and all the nuisance conditions that occur with that. Those have since grown back because, as we all know, they instantly reappear in Florida. So they've grown back. The camp showed up. There's a significant amount of trash in there. You can see through the pictures as you're coming through here. And I guess it was pretty significantly poor conditions back in there. At that point in time, since it's a repeat violator, on January 24th, we sent the notice of violation, the notice of hearing, the repeat violator notice of hearing to the registered agent as well as the property owner. And we posted the property on February 2nd. I did conduct a reinspection yesterday, which is the slightly grainy photograph that I took from the street because we didn't have any consent to go back on the property. Officer Hallaby and his group had taken our photographs because we had gotten a call for service out there. So the second time I didn't have trespass. They didn't give me any authorization to be on the property, so I had to take it from the right of way. So it's from the sidewalk right on the west side of Pinellas Avenue. And you can clearly see there's still that green tarp indicating there's a tent back there. So at best, the green tarp is trash or debris, even if there's no people living under it. So before the board are the repeat violations of 8-22 and 8-52. And then I'd just like the board to consider adding 8-40, the public nuisance part, along with the case. But as I stated, the repeat violator is 8-22 and 8-52. 8-40 wasn't part of the previous case, but I'd like to add it to this case. And at this point, the city has nothing further.
Does the board have any questions for Officer Casson? I will entertain a motion.
And I would just suggest that we break these up into two, since that there's a new violation which would require a compliance date. The repeat violation, of course, does not require a compliance date because it's already in violation. So two separate motions.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, Section 8-40 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call. Bobby?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. And so the next one is the repeat violations?
We actually need to finish that first one.
Second motion.
We need to do a compliance date and a dollar amount of the fine. Okay.
You give us an idea of what you'd suggest?
I would say, I mean, it's cleaning that property up, and it can be done relatively quick, within 30 days. The previous fine for the other case was $25 a day, so for this particular one, I'd probably go $50 a day. Because that's probably what I'm going to say for this.
I move that the respondent shall have until
We're just dealing with that one.
March 18th to bring the property into compliance with Code Section 8-40 or suffer a fine of $50 per day for each day thereafter that the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Second.
Okay, we just need a roll call vote then.
Roll call vote?
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
So we need to do a second motion then on the repeat violation, which would include the prosecution costs in that motion, since it is a repeat.
Okay.
Yep.
Repeat violators, and I need a motion for both the violations and also the prosecution costs. Oh, go ahead.
So this is a repeat violation. How much time do you want to give on?
They're running right now. You're going to decide what the fine is from January 24th.
So he's still in violation.
Correct.
And it's going, so
Correct.
was he fined?
He was, as I stated, his previous fine was $25, and if I was to be asked, I went with 50 for the other one, because I'm going to say 50 for the repeat violation to just kind of run them the same. That would be my recommendation if I was asked.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move that based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented, and law, that the respondent was in violation of sections 8-22 and 8-52 of the Tarpon Springs City Code from January 18th, from January 24th, 2019, through the present day, and a fine of $50 per day for the running total of days be awarded the city. Also, prosecution costs of $91.50 for the costs incurred in prosecuting this case.
Second, please? She said.
Okay, I want to just make sure that we're clear on the motion then. So it's a repeat violation of 852, 822. It's $50 a day, beginning January 24th until it comes into compliance.
That's correct.
Okay. In addition to that, prosecution costs of $91.50.
That is correct.
Okay.
That was my intention, yes, sir.
Okay, Bobby?
Okay. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
You can do them all together, all the way down to here through 14, because this one's got prosecution costs. We need to do that one separate. None of the others have prosecution costs. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
He's in this section.
Can we get one motion?
Yes, I'd like to
for-
make a motion on the
All the way
affidavits of
through.
compliance.
Yes, all the way through to 15,
14.
14, all the way through 14.
I understand. And that's case for 16-800000292, case 18-800000371, case 18-800000528, case 18-800000692, and lastly, case 18-800000722.
So it's a motion to accept the affidavits of compliance?
That's correct.
Okay.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call?
Sorry, excuse me. Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Mrs. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs? Mrs. Wade?
Yes?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Okay, the next case is 18-800000969, 107 East Lime Street.
I move to accept the affidavit of compliance and award the city $142 for the cost incurred in prosecuting the case.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Fine reduction request at 18-800000722, 423 East Harrison.
I'm sorry.
Has everybody read the request?
Mr. Attorney,
Yes.
for these, there is no guiding paper for us. Do we just use the motion for fine reduction and then just put a zero amount in if we don't wish to reduce it, or do we do it otherwise?
It would be a motion, I'm sorry, it would just be a motion to deny.
Okay.
If you wanted to reduce it, it would be a motion to reduce the fine to, and then a dollar amount. If you wanted to bring it all the way down to the costs, then you would say, motion to reduce it down to whatever, $500.
And then if it's a correction, it can be done in that manner as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, can I entertain a motion, please?
In reference to case number 18-800000722, I move that the corrected fine of $688 remain in place and decline any other fine reduction.
Is that the same thing as denying the request?
Denying the request.
Except there was an error in,
The calculation.
Calculation.
So the maker of the motion is just correcting it to understand there's not going to be any reduction any further down than the total fine of $688.
thank you.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes. Number 17, 18-800000732,
It stayed.
fine reduction. Has everybody been able to read that request? I believe we have a city's response to that as well.
I move that we deny the petition for reduction of fine in case number 18-800000732.
Second?
Do you recommend?
There's no second, then the motion fails.
Second, the motion fails. Get another motion, please?
Let's make sure we know what we're looking at. It
Yeah.
appears to me the fine is $19,686.50, and the city recommends we drop it by $1,686.50.
It looked to me as though it was what they wanted to not drop it, but what they wanted to drop it to, 1,600.
Drop $1,600 up to $19,000.
Yeah.
Ah, so I need to do the math.
You want to agree with that?
If you agree with that.
So,
We need a motion and a second in order to discuss.
I think my motion failed without a second.
Do we have anything?
well, before I make a motion, I just want to make sure, again, that I fully understand what I'm going to make a motion on if I do so.
Sure.
We're talking about the city would be satisfied with $1,686.50 to resolve this case.
Correct.
I'll make a motion. I move that the request made on behalf of this particular case be granted in part, and that the outstanding fines be reduced to $1,686.50.
No,
Not the way I understood it.
we,
I thought they wanted you to reduce the fine by that.
No.
No, that's what, no.
I second his motion.
Okay,
Second his motion?
That is the total fine. From 19,000 down to 1680.
Okay, now discussion. We have a,
Well, let me justify, or at least attempt to justify why I made the motion as I did. At least in my reading and understanding of the city's response, it indicates that the city would be satisfied with $1,686.50. If I've misinterpreted that, I'd withdraw my motion, but,
No, you have,
well, then in that case, I feel that the board should comply with the request of the city, since it's the city that's receiving the fine, and if they're satisfied with that total, then I think it's a good suggestion.
Are we allowed to have more
discussion,
Okay.
yes.
I was under the impression that the only ways we could reduce fines were if the person had shown, just Mr. Trask, for you to read that rule again for me. If they've shown financial
Hardship?
hardship, and I did not see that in the presentation.
I'll read the rule to you. This is Rule 5, Section 4. After a fine has been imposed by the board and within 60 days after the violation is brought into compliance, a violator may petition for reconsideration of a fine. The petition must be in writing, signed by the violator, and include a copy of the affidavit of compliance executed by the code inspector. The petition must include conclusive evidence showing extreme or undue hardship in the payment of the fine or preventing the violator to come into compliance within a time period established by the board's order. The board secretary shall schedule the petition to be considered, and the board shall make its determination based solely upon the written petition. The board may request information from the code inspector. The board secretary shall notify the violator by regular mail of the determination made by the board. No petition for reduction of fine will be considered prior to the board's acceptance of an affidavit of compliance. Under no circumstances may the amount of the fine be reduced below the cost of the action. Under no circumstances may the amount of the fine be reduced once a foreclosure action is instituted. Additionally, under no circumstances may the amount of the fine for a repeat violation be reduced. That was the reading of your rule that's been in effect for about 30 years now. So to answer your question, the petition must include conclusive evidence showing extreme or undue hardship in the payment of the fine or preventing the violator from coming into compliance within the time period established by the board's order. I think that that's what you were getting to. Yeah.
Well, at least in my opinion, the death of the primary owner would indicate a sufficient.
But he's already been a repeat violator a number of times.
Well, then let me ask you this. Perhaps the city can explain
not
its
arguing
position.
with you.
That's fine, but perhaps the city can explain its position, since the city made a recommendation based on what would satisfy the city, so.
Okay, sounds good. Officer Gass.
Thank you. The city came to this conclusion. We had conversation with the daughter. She was obviously unaware that there was ever any problems with the property. The father died. He lived in New Jersey. Obviously, when all the paperwork and everything started to come in subsequent to his death, she realized that there was an issue. She immediately got the property into compliance. The city does believe that there's a significant hardship in that. And yes, it had been a repeat violator before, but he was healthy enough to take care of his property, and we'd been dealing with him in the prior cases. In this last one, he did die while the case was in fine status. And as I stated, she did, from the time she contacted our office, it was 8 days until she was in compliance from out of state. So she did make a very significant effort to get the property in compliance. We've had assurances from her that she will continue to take care of it. We've had no further issues with it. And based on that, it's already a significant hardship of losing your father. And we kind of spoke about it. The current fine was $200 a day for the 8 days that it was in violation while she was aware of it, is what the city recommended in this particular case the fine be. And that's why the city's recommendation, including the prosecution costs, is $1,686.50 to satisfy that fine and potentially not have any other problems with the property. Because I believe there may also be a lien on it as well that she's going to have to deal with outside of this whole thing. So that's our position.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor indicating the $1,600 and some odd dollars for the city, and it's second. A roll call, please.
Mrs. Tellier?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes.
Ms. Norfleet?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Mrs. Wade?
No.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
2, motion carries.
Motion carried. Okay. Approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of January 2019.
You second that? Approval of the minute?
I'm going to second down here.
Oh, got a second. Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Any public comments? Yes, sir.
You need to come down here. And do the mic.
Come on down here to the microphone if you don't mind.
Thank you, Harry Patzelides. I'm speaking to violation 18.800000692.
That case has been decided. You're not here to argue that case, are you, sir?
It's in compliance,
Yes, it is.
but the last time it's in compliance because I provided a structural engineer report as to the soundness of the building.
Great.
Previously, I had a contractor who was here and testified with 20 years' experience that the building was sound, but the board did not accept his testimony and continued fining me. So I then had to go to the expense of getting a structural engineer, and he's found the building to be sound. So what I'm asking is, the building was in compliance prior to any fines at all being initiated, so I'd like the board to remove all fines because it's structurally sound.
Okay,
And
Mr.
there's no-
Patzelides, you need to file a motion for, or a petition for reconsideration under Rule 5, Section 3. The board can't consider a motion or a petition without it being in writing before them and properly agendized. So that would be the way that you would need to do it, a petition for rehearing under Rule 5, Section 4.
Yes, but my understanding of that rule is that it's a financial issue. If you can afford it, you can't apply that.
I'm sorry?
So I can afford it, and I just want to clarify that my testimony the first time at the board hearing, that Mr. Gasson even admitted he wasn't a structural engineer and didn't know about structural engineering, but yet the board went along with his recommendation to fine me because he said that the structure was not sound. So the following month, I was called back again and brought a construction person here to state that the building was sound, and the board still didn't accept that. And so I had to go get a structural engineer who reinforced the same conclusion that the structure was sound. And so that's been the testimony all along, and the board chose to fine me. And so I have these fines that have been running since August 29th at $100, well, since November 26th at $100 a day. And I've been in compliance the whole time. So this is not the standard thing, and I'd like consideration or at least a suggestion on how this can be handled. I don't think
Rule
it's
5, Section 3 of the Rules of Procedure that the board receives, that's the rule, Mr. Patzelides. And so you need to follow that rule, and that will give then due process to both you and to the city in bringing a case before the Code Enforcement Board. So it's Rule 5, Section 3, petition for reconsideration. And I'm sure that Beth or Steve will be able to get you a copy of that rule if you'd like,
Yes,
or
sir,
I've got
but
it.
you just previously said that you have to be in financial need in order to have that in consideration.
No, that's a different rule. That's Rule 5, Section 4. That's for reconsideration of a fine. That's a different rule than the rule for reconsideration of a prior order.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, excuse me, I didn't understand that.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to do that.
Yep.
So how much time do I have to do that, sir?
30 days from the date that the order was entered that you wanted to have reconsidered.
So from the last meeting?
I don't know when the order was entered, but it would have
That's
been.
already passed.
And then that's your opportunity. So, timing-wise,
The last hearing was December 13th, December 12th or something that I came to.
okay, so that time frame is passed then. So your only other opportunity at this point would be to appeal the most recent order of the board if that was within 30 days. So
Well, what about the fine? Is that going to be an order? Because
it would have
when
already
was
been- it would
brought
already-
into compliance,
Right.
you would have to start fining me, and that hasn't been determined yet. So would I have 30 days from that?
you have 30 days from the order that levied the compliance date.
I can probably make this really easy. We backdated when we got the structural, there's no fines.
Okay, there you
So
go.
it's kind of a moot point.
So
For that
backdated the
part,
compliance
There may have
date.
been repeat violator fines unassociated with the accessory structure, but he sent the structural engineer's report, and in the city said, okay, it was fine back then, so we went back to that date. He still got an order dated by the board as normal, but there were no fines associated with the accessory structure. So I did backdate it back to the date
I
of the original.
appreciate that very much, but
there
what
you
date
had
is that,
other
sir?
issues, then those may have drawn fines, but the accessory structure was basically taken off the table based on your structural engineer's report.
Okay, as long as we're communicating, at the last board hearing,
We can
You
communicate
can
that outside of here,
communicate
because the board,
between
there's
the
no
two
fine.
of
There's
you
nothing that
after
the
the
board can
meeting.
do.
okay,
That would
because
be
he
great.
testified that he repaired all the other things too, and timely. So there shouldn't be any fines at all on any of it.
If you would,
I'll be happy to talk to you, officer.
please, thank you. All right, any
And
board
thank you, board.
comments?
I appreciate it.
Any board comment?
The only item I just want you to bring to your attention again, we're gonna finish today in a reasonable amount of time, and that's a good thing. But I would like to, again, remind you that I had made the suggestion after the last session, which went nearly till 6 o'clock, almost 4 hours, that after perhaps 2 to 2.5 hours, we consider taking a 15-minute break.
I'm sorry.
Because
Yeah.
I'm at the point now, I've got,
Okay,
my legs and my knees start aching. And
Fine.
just
Yes.
so that you bear that in mind, today, we don't need that, but just, that might be something that you want to consider.
Will do.
The other thing is,
Yeah.
if we determine, as time goes on, that we keep getting longer and longer, perhaps we can start earlier in the day, or make some type of accommodation, even if it means 2 days, I'm not sure what. But 4 hours sitting at a desk trying to make
Understand.
determinations is a very difficult day for all of us.
You can always ask too, and we can stop. We'd be happy to.
Tom, do you always have Dunedin's after us on this date? Is that pretty consistent?
Do I have the Dunedin City Commission meeting most of the time?
But I mean, it's on our same date, so that's obviously a scheduling concern for you, right?
Yeah, if it goes late, I think that what Mr. Demonts is just saying, can we just have a 10 or 15-minute break?
Well,
Yeah.
he also brought up another point about the time, and I know we had discussed this once before, and I didn't know exactly the proper
But that
procedure for
perhaps
that.
if we started a half an hour earlier or 1 o'clock as opposed to 2, I'm open to suggestions. I'm willing to sit here for the 4 hours or 5 hours if we have to, but it is something I wanted somebody to consider. And I'm basing that particularly on past experience in this type of situations where 2 hours, you need a bit of a break for whatever reasons.
It's a
Okay,
good
great.
point.
Good point. And I just wrote it down.
Being at 2 hours right now, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. They'll give you a break.
Second that motion. Anybody want a second?
I did.
I'll second.
Okay. It's adjourned. Thanks for your time.
Good job.